Kia ora tātou. In the last video we looked at variation and the importance of variation within a species, and as part of that we learnt, or we know intuitively, that the traits of a particular individual in a species is able to be passed on to their offspring. So if we were to think of just a generic family, we would know that the siblings of this family would have some traits in common with their parents. And for a long time, scientists weren't sure how this information was passed on. It must come from somewhere, because there are those similarities there. And after a lot of experiments, what was found out was that in the cells, you may have been able to look at your own cells if you were able to do any cheek cell experiments at school with the microscopes. So in the cell we've got just a basic outline, the cell membrane, the nucleus, and then there is some DNA in the nucleus. For a long time scientists thought that it could have been proteins that are hanging around in the middle here, that could have been the things that pass on the genetic information, the things that pass on to the offspring to say, this is what you need to grow into. You should have blue eyes, you should have brown hair. That's what I mean by genetic information. But eventually they found out that no, it was actually DNA that is the genetic information carrier. So let's have a look into a little bit about what DNA looks like, the structure of DNA. So this might be familiar to you. This is a double helix DNA structure, and this structure was found about 70 years ago or so. So let's have a look at if we were to unwind this double helix, what would we see? So we're unwinding it into two straight lines now, and in between these rungs there are what we call bases, and we give the bases a letter. There are 4 possible bases that can make up these rungs in between the two lines of DNA. So those bases can be called either G for guanine, C for cytosine, A for adenine, or T for thymine. And these bases always pair together in the same way. So a G will always pair with a C, and A will always pair with a T. The way that I remember that is that the G and the C both have a curved shape, and the A and the T both have straight lines in their structure. Just a simple way that I remember it, but you might think of other ways. So these rungs each contain 2 bases in them. So we might have a G here and a C paired up with that. This one might be a T, and we could have an A, and we'll go on until we get to the end of the line. There's no, they could be in any order, and we'll learn the importance of the order of these bases in subsequent videos. So T, let's do 2 more, C, G, and another A, T. So these things in the middle of the DNA, those are called the bases. And they will have any of these 4 letters. You don't need to remember the names of the letters or the full names of the bases, just the letters themselves. And you need to remember that G goes with C and A goes with T. And what we call them when they're paired up is simply a base pair. And the order in which they go throughout the DNA, so here the order of them is G, T, A, T, C, A. We're just worried about one strand when we're talking about the order in which they go. We call that the base sequence. Base sequence. Writing over myself. And that is the beginnings of what we need to know when we're learning about how DNA works and how genetic information is passed on from parents to offspring. Thanks very much for watching this video. In the next video we'll be looking at chromosomes and being able to define genes and alleles. Thanks very much.